Hey everybody, my name is Michael. I'm introducing myself to you today and sharing with you today my experience with my covert malignant narcissist mother. I've been no contact with her for 5 years now, but the pandemic and everything has really made things just kind of weird. A lot of feelings, anger, guilt, resentment have come up. I have a young family. I've got 2 young boys. They've never met her. Not sure I ever intend to allow them to meet her. So, again, with everything that's going on, I felt like it was time to share my story. And so that's what I want to do today is I want to start from the beginning. I want to go over the details of our relationship and hopefully, give you some insight, because I'm sure there's a lot of you who are dealing with this in your life. And man, it's frustrating because we're the ones that are crazy, right? So, I want to share with you so that way you know that you're not crazy. A lot of times these people are very toxic, and so let's get into it. Childhood. I'm an adopted only child of a covert malignant narcissist, so kind of a confusing relationship because I'm the golden child, but at the same time the scapegoat. So it's kind of interesting. But, my parents were together until I was about 13, and they got a divorce, which seemed normal. I could tell that they weren't really happy together, so it seemed fair that they wanted to separate. And they made it seem like it was going to be, all about me, which it, seemed like it was. Spent a week at my mom's house, spent a week at my dad's house, seemed fair. But kind of leading up to that point, I was overweight my whole life. Only ever knew being overweight. So by the time I got to 13, it just kind of escalated, where I just continued to gain weight into high school. I, was pretty alone. Again, no siblings. I mean, I had friends, but bouncing between the 2 houses, my mom was pretty busy. She's a pretty successful person, and so she worked a lot, and so I was home by myself a lot. So, I ate a lot because I was bored, lonely. I was privileged. Afforded a lot of things. And for a while that seemed like a good enough reason to kind of just be okay with everything and not really recognize it, because you think, well, geez, I have this great life and I get all these freedoms, and I'm treated well because I get nice things. But it was only after kind of leaving the situation that I kind of started to understand the patterns of behavior. So, it kind of got worse then. I'm not going to go over too much younger than 13, just because it was whatever. And plus, I don't really remember a lot of it. I'll be honest. Like, I talk to my wife a lot, and it's weird. I don't remember a lot. So I know that's got something to do with it. But, when my dad got his own place, his own house, and I was spending time at each one, it seemed cool at first. But what really started to happen was my mom is a bit controlling, which is an understatement. So when I would go to my dad and be like, Dad, she's like just kind of all over me, wants me to do this, wants me to do that, expects me to do this. He kind of was like, well, that's your mom. That's your mom, and it's just easier to do what she wants, because then if you just do what she wants, she'll leave you alone. Sounds like good advice. It's kind of true, if I just did what she was asking, she'd just leave me alone. She wouldn't bother me. She'd say, hey, you did a great job, and she'd try to validate me or whatever. But, really what was happening was my dad didn't have to deal with her BS anymore. So telling me to just, do whatever she was asking was kind of not helpful. Because he didn't have to deal with it anymore. It wasn't his problem, but it was still my problem. And I was still doing whatever she said whenever she said it. Because everything she said was with the best intention, and she was always doing the best thing for me. So that was my dad's side, He didn't really care or think anything about it. And so for years, while I was living between both houses, I just kind of did that. So then for my mom's side, okay, so my parents are split up. She never, ever dated ever again. No, at least that I'm aware of. I'm sure whatever, but no men ever. I became the only man in her life. And at 13, I helped do normal things like chores and cook and clean and whatever, but emotionally, I was what's kind of called a son husband. I did everything for her that a husband is supposed to do, outside of maybe the physical stuff. But it just was weird, and it didn't seem weird at the time because it kind of just seemed like, well, I'm just taking care of my mom, helping her out. She helps me out. We got each other's backs, right? And my mom loved to kind of tell me like, well, we respect one another. We respect one another. I remember that so much, that was one of her favorite phrases. And she would just hammer that. I lived with her, I lived with my dad. And then by the time I got into college, right? So, it was time to look for college first and foremost. So I actually looked out of state, found a good college, got accepted. She did not like that idea one bit. In fact, she paid for me to go to a private college at home, 45 minutes from my house. Again, super generous. I'm thankful that I have a college degree and I got to go to a good school, but let's be honest, this was about her and what she wanted. What I wanted didn't matter. In fact, she told me what I wanted. This is what you want. This is the right thing to do. Okay. So for years, I just would take her word for it. She would tell me it's the right thing to do. I would do it. If I said, hey, I have this idea to do this thing, she would kind of go, why don't you think about that and get back to me? Which usually meant, no, you're wrong. Why don't you tell me what I want to hear, and then we'll go from there. So again, just kind of the manipulation and the training that had been going on my whole life just continued to manifest again and again. But, I think I told you I was overweight my whole life. At 18 years old, I was 285 pounds. And after my first year of college, I decided to lose the weight because I was pre-diabetic and needed to make some changes. And, I've lost 125 pounds. When I lost that first round of weight, after my first year of college, that was like the first time in my life that I had felt some semblance of freedom of will. Like I chose to do that, and it was a good choice because I was getting healthy, but it really made me feel empowered to take control of my life for the first time, and obviously made me much happier and not feel so frustrated with myself. So carry that into, right, so now I'm a little more confident. I start dating a little bit, right? And my first girlfriend went through another phase of just trying new things, and my mom did not like her. You know, she basically resorted to recruiting her friends to convince me that this was also not a good idea. So, because when I heard it from my mom, it just kind of, I did that whole, you know, I love her, you know, and it just kind of made me more emboldened to still date her. So she used more tactics to try to get me to do what she wanted. So we dated for a couple years. It was a good relationship. I learned a lot, but I did move on. I think of my own choice, I think. Felt like it anyway. Might be interesting to analyze. Started dating another girl who was kind of the opposite, you know, super smart, really attractive, but it turns out super crazy. Didn't know it at the time. You know, we dated for a little while, but the funny thing was everybody loved her because she was smart and she looked the part and she was crazy. So she would do things like tell me stories about how her ex-boyfriends, you know, would stalk her. And I'm like, what? It's crazy. Turns out, so she just stops talking to me one day, like out of the blue, like not calling me, not texting me. And I'm like, can we just talk? And she's just like avoiding me, and I'm trying to figure out what's going on. And I'm driving around one day and I'm like, well, maybe I'll just stop by her house. Maybe I'll catch her at home and we can just talk. And I'm around the corner from her house and it dawns on me that I'm stalking her. But not intent. I mean, I'm confused and I'm frustrated and it just hits me. I'm like, she's manipulating me. This is what she does. And this was later confirmed by, you know, other friends who knew her, and turns out I was not wrong. She's a narcissist. So now we have my mom and we have my girlfriend. Okay, well, not anymore. So here's a pattern here, right? So narcissists tend to find you. If you're somebody who has narcissists in your life, there's usually a lot of them, and they tend to find you. We're kind of susceptible is what I've learned, because I also have some friends who are highly narcissistic, but I digress. So we stopped dating. I probably, I don't know, gosh, maybe 6 months, maybe a year later, met my now wife. And that was great. You know, we dated, and my mom let her start living in our house. My mom helped her buy a car. So my mom hired her to work for her at her office, which at the time I told my wife, I was like, do not do that. And she's like, why not? Sounds great. The money's good. I'm close to home. Your mom's, and I just was like, at the time I did not know my mom was, you know, a malignant narcissist. I just went, I don't know, it just feels weird. But okay, if it's what you want, I just,